Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We're going to do a fun new introduction this time. We'd like everyone to introduce yourself in chat. Let us know if you're affiliated with an organization, what that organization is, and what is your favorite fictional method of transportation? I especially think this is going to be interesting from the panelists. So what is your favorite fictional method of transportation? How would you in your dreams get around? Okay. I hope everyone's introducing themselves and letting us know what your favorite fictional transportation method would be. My name's Petra Sultan. I am the Director of Advocacy and Education for Thrive, the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. I'm here with Michelle Kim, who is assisting me, and she's also part of our Thrive staff. Today we're talking about safer streets and public transit fleets. It's very hard to say. First, I'm going to do a quick introduction to Thrive, and then we're going to go straight into our panelists. So on the next slide, Thrive is the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. We strengthen people, we strengthen organizations, and we strengthen communities. And we do this through capacity building, cross-sector collaboration, and policy and advocacy. This is part of our policy and advocacy. Some of the things we've been working on recently have been around our recovery efforts in the county. So we work through the county with COVID community action teams, which are nonprofits. They're working directly with the community on COVID outreach. Our Children in Education Thrive Action Group, our Wellness Wednesdays, which is open to all nonprofit professionals to help reduce the stress of this time period. Next slide. So Thrive Environmental Sustainability has been around since February 2018. We've addressed a lot of different issues. Today, it's exactly 1 year since the last time we addressed transportation. So we're going to continue with the once a year on transportation, but it also came up when we were talking about our collective climate goals. So in addition to doing these monthly meetings, one of the things that's coming up next is a creation of a San Mateo County-wide Environmental Justice Summit in the summer of 2022. If you're interested in being more involved in that, please reach out to me or reach out to Michelle. We're very excited about it. It's going to be for the whole county. And next slide. I just wanted to let you know about a couple other Thrive events. Thrive is a membership-based cross-sector organization. And one of the things we do is with our capacity building is let people know what kinds of resources are available to nonprofits. And we're starting a monthly series where we're going to have different nonprofits and organizations that support nonprofits talk about what they're able to offer to the nonprofit community. So the first one will feature interns that are paid for by other people, opportunities for getting your facilities fixed for free, and some other free fundraising opportunities. So we hope you can join us for one of our Thrive resource rooms. The first one will be on March 8th. And Wellness Wednesdays, the next one is going to be focused on stress management. Again, I think everyone has had plenty of stress, so please share this with your community as well. The next slide. We are co-sponsoring with the lead sponsor, Citizens Climate Lobby, a congressional candidates forum that's going to be focused just on the environment. Thrive is also going to be hosting many other candidate forums, including for sheriff and for supervisor districts. And we'll have more details about that as they come up. Next slide. Today, we have some fantastic organizations, 7 organizations, 6 people, to talk about the future of transportation. I think I would be preaching to the choir if I told you in this room why transportation is important for climate change. I do want to emphasize that it's also important for climate justice and for racial justice. Air pollution, the effects of climate change, such as extreme heat and sea level rise, all tend to affect our most vulnerable communities the most. So we're here to discuss what the current state of transportation is in our county, what programs are available, with an emphasis on how that includes equity. How is that being figured into our local transportation plans? And what can we as a community do to make sure that climate change and climate justice are part of these planning conversations? So I'm not going to read the bios of all of our speakers because they're long and terrific, but we sent them out in advance, and you can also find them on our page that Michelle just put the link in. So we're going to do a quick poll before we start about what kind of public transportation, what kind of transportation in general you use. You can pick as many as you actually use, and you can scroll down a little bit to get to the end. So if everybody could just answer the poll, I think that would help inform where we're going next in this conversation. So we're going to start kind of with the most broad, I don't want to say broad speaker, that's the wrong thing to say, with the most broad geographic area. Adina Levin is the project director for Friends of Caltrain, but also the advocacy director for Seamless Bay Area. So each speaker will spend about 3 to 5 minutes talking about their organization and what they're working on, and then afterwards we'll have a conversation. So just quickly looking at this poll, oops, I made a mistake. We're actually going to have Emma Shlaes first. Just changed that in the last minute, from commute.org. Now, Emma was here last time as representative of Silicon Valley Bike Coalition, but she's now with commute.org, and we're happy to welcome her back. So it seems like one person commutes regularly with Jetpack. That is super cool. Small number with bus, Caltrain, a lot of walking and some EV, and 0 e-bike, skateboarder, scooter, and 0 unicycle. So thank you so much for filling out the poll, and Emma.
Okay, thank you, Petra, and thank you to Thrive for inviting us. My name is Emma Shlaes, and I am a TDM program manager at commute.org, and TDM stands for Transportation Demand Management. So if you don't know who we are, Commute.org is a government agency with its own Joint Powers Authority board, and we're focused on reducing vehicle miles traveled and single occupant vehicle trips in San Mateo County. Here are some of the things that we work on. We know, that's a very diverse workforce requiring lots of different types of transportation. And so we want to offer and support diverse transportation options so that we can reach our goal of reducing VMT and SOV rates. And so we're interested in shared trips, electric, as well as just connected, whether that's through technology or some other way. So in spring 2021, our board passed a new strategic plan, and these are the 4 objectives. So we're just starting to work on this this calendar year, and I'll touch on some of this a little bit more, but there are ensure organizational sustainability, integrate equity principles across all programs, develop programs and services to meet emergent challenges and opportunities, and expand participation in our core programs. And I just want to mention within Objective 1, we have one of the sub goals is to the intent to have alternative non-fossil fuel fleets. So we have a huge shuttle program with a number of different shuttles, and the goal is to have whether that's hydrogen fuel, electric, that's one of the goals within our strategic plan. Sorry for the, I don't know if you can see that, but whoop. Okay, so objective number 2 is integrating equity principles across all programs. And these are our 3 initiatives. The yellow arrows there indicate the things that we've just started working on. So for 2.1, we are starting to create a stakeholder group, which will include board members as well as some external stakeholders. I have also started gathering data from around the county that speaks to different aspects of diversity, so we can establish some baseline measurements. In goal 2.2, which will be developing our metrics for how we're measuring equity, we've started going through what we are already measuring to then figure out what's missing and what we need to develop new metrics for. And then 2.3, that will come a little bit later after some of our analysis is done, but we have gotten started on staff training, and we've applied to be a member of the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, which provides training opportunities. So here's a recent effort that we have been helping out. You may hear from other speakers on this as well, but in 2021, Caltrain had 700 unused Go passes that were donated by Intuit and to distribute to income eligible commuters that use Caltrain. So Commute.org was one of several organizations that was selected by Caltrain to assist with finding eligible commuters to distribute the Go Pass that are loaded on Clipper cards. And so we worked with Redwood City and businesses there to distribute the passes. In 2022, this program was renewed. So all the commuters that received passes in the pilot program received a new pass for this year. And we're waiting to receive the additional passes to continue outreach countywide and provide more passes for people. We're also currently running a survey of coastside residents. So if you or someone you know lives or works on the coast, please share the link. I'll share it a little later. And that survey closes March 4th. But that's to identify transportation needs on the coast. And then quickly, I just want to run through some commuter trends. So this graphic is based on the US Census data, and it's from 2019. This is how people got to work. So you can see mostly people drove alone, also transit, worked at home was only 6%, walking and biking was lower than that, and carpool was up there as well. This is a totally different data source, so it's not one-to-one, but this graphic shows trips that were tracked in Commute.org's STAR platform. So it's a very self-selected group, but you can see more than half of the trips tracked were for telework. Transit was only at 6%, and carpool and bike were about 12%. So again, different data source, but just shows you a little bit of the difference between pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. This shows Commute.org's shuttle ridership over the past year. So ridership has doubled from what it was 1 year ago, which is great, but it is only 35% of what we had in the year prior to that pandemic. And we did see a dip this calendar year with Omicron, but we expect it to keep going back up in the next few months. So these next few slides are from the Bay Area Council's January 2022 poll results. So they poll a bunch of employers that are members. And this is an estimate of how often employers expect employees to come to work, with the majority expecting, estimating 3 days per week that employees will come to the office. And this shows that employers expect about 25% of the workforce to be fully remote post-pandemic. And this is just to show that not some of these employers have essential workers. It's not all companies that are 100% remote right now. There's different aspects. So that's my presentation for now, and I know you're going to hear a lot more, and I look forward to questions.
Thank you, Emma. We'll be doing questions at the end, both chat and live. So thank you. Adina from Seamless Bay Area and Friends of Caltrain.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is pick up where Emma has left off. In terms of, Emma was just providing some statistics about the changes in travel during the pandemic and expected changes post-pandemic. And I'm going to talk about opportunities to for change as in the recovery phase from the pandemic, in order to restore the public transportation system in a way that is more rider friendly and more equitable, in a way that we really need to do in order to address our environmental goals and equity goals for the region. I wear two hats in this presentation as the advocacy director of Seamless Bay Area and the executive director of Friends of Caltrain. Seamless Bay Area is a nonprofit with a mission to transform the Bay Area's fragmented public transportation system into a world-class, unified, equitable, widely used system by building a diverse movement for change and promoting policy reforms. And this is really, this was an issue and a need before the pandemic, really exacerbated by the pandemic, where transit ridership, as people were doing a lot less travel overall, but people who depended on transit and had essential jobs continued to travel. There was a tremendous decrease in transit ridership, with bus services and local transit services having the most people continue to ride, and steeper drops on the regional services. And in the Bay Area, with more color on what Emma was saying, the regional services in the Bay Area are the slowest to recover around the country, where you can see that Caltrain's ridership and BART's ridership are all the way at the bottom here, and with Golden Gate and other agencies in other parts of the country still have very deeply suppressed ridership, but not quite as much. And in order to achieve our climate goals, we need to have public transportation be a widely used service in order to really keep up with climate. Electric vehicles are fantastic, and electric vehicles will not be enough. And so one of the things that, so Seamless has really been focusing on the fragmentation of the system, which was a challenge before COVID, where we had 27 different transit agencies that didn't provide well-connected service. And so we, and as I'll go over, the region as a whole, have really been focusing on improving a well-connected and affordable transit system as an important strategy in order to be able to bring riders back to transit and make it better than it was before. And one thing that has been really moving forward pretty rapidly over the last couple of years, where there's going to be action opportunities, has been in the area of fare integration. And by the way, as I go through these opportunities, there are going to be many action opportunities. You don't need to remember all of them, because there's going to be an email that will go out and give you the information that you need to take action on the ones that your organization would like to. There was a regional fare study looking at how to have more integrated and affordable fares in the region. This is something where there are changes that are moving forward, including a pilot all agency transit pass for organizations, starting with colleges and affordable housing, but then moving on to transportation management organizations and employers. So we'll not only have transit passes for Caltrain only for one agency, or for example, a housing development only providing bus passes. There's going to be bus passes allowing people to use any transit to have more mobility. That's slated to roll out in August. Then in 2023, part of the fare policy vision coming out of this study is free transfers. And that's slated to roll out in 2023, and then standardizing the regional fare so that Caltrain and BART and the Transbay buses cost the same, adding convenience to passengers. However, in order for these to roll out, they will need to be approved by each and every agency. And so these are going to be starting with the all agency transit pass that's going to be coming to Caltrain and SamTrans this spring. So that will be an opportunity to be supportive if you agree that these are good things for equity and for environment, as they were modeled to really be powerful in terms of increasing transit ridership. And many of the groups that are part of Thrive Alliance have already supported. And if you have not yet, you'll have opportunities to do this. This is one piece of a broader regional strategy to improve seamless transit as a way to recover public transportation from the impacts of COVID. There was a blue ribbon task force looking at this issue that was approved over the summer and came up with 27 actions with funding for the top items, including integrated fares, branding and wayfinding signage, and an integrated service plan. Some of you may know that the M bus, which goes over the 92 bridge, was cut for COVID, and there's no plans to return it. There's going to be a connected network plan that's going to be done for the region, looking at where should we have service and what should the service level be. That's going to be something that you can pay attention to on an ongoing basis, as well as a study on how to govern that system in order to be able to manage a coordinated system going forward. In order to accelerate that transformation action plan, Senator Becker has announced the Seamless Transit Transportation Act that is setting deadlines to be able to really move forward on the connected network plan, integrated fares, wayfinding, and real-time information standards. I'll send you information. You'll get information about this bill. In order to be able to recover public transportation, we need not only integrated service, but funding is absolutely critical. The Voices for Public Transportation Coalition, which many of you are already part of, has been advocating for a regional funding measure in 2024. And as part of that transformation action plan, the MTC convened a listening session, and you'll expect outreach on this topic in the coming year. There's also shorter term opportunities to support funding for transit service as part of the state budget. And that's something where there's a state budget surplus, and the federal funding that's been keeping transit running during the pandemic is going to run out. So in order to be able to keep transit running during that recovery period, there's an opportunity. We'll send you that information. Next, and something that I'll say with a Friends of Caltrain hat, is Caltrain Electrification is well underway, with expected to complete in 2024, but it had some cost overruns with some issues that a lot has been addressed, but there still needs to be money to finish the job. And there's a bill that Assembly Member Mullen has brought forward to provide some funding for this, and you will get the information about those actions. And lastly, there's going to be work in the coming year on grade separations for the corridor, providing greater safety and reliability. Friends of Caltrain is focused on the Peninsula corridor for a stable funding and successful modernization in the context of a regionally integrated public transportation system. So be happy to take any questions when we get to the questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Adina. That was a lot of information. And one of the things I think people don't realize with the electrification of Caltrain, there will be many more trains, which will be great, but it's going to make grade separation even more important. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. We have one more poll, again, to get an idea of what you would like to use as far as transportation, but are unable to because of lacking time or money or access or whatever else is keeping you from it. But what would you like to do more of? everybody could take the poll. In the meantime, I will introduce our next speaker, Diana Crumedy, who is with Silicon Valley Bike Coalition.
Hello. Michelle's going to be driving for me. I can't quite see if that's awesome. Thank you so much. So hello, my name is Diana Crumedy, and I am the Santa Clara County Advocate at Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. I'm here to talk to you about biking. Thank you for having me. So just a little bit about Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. We're a nonprofit to make bicycling safer and more comfortable for residents of Santa Clara County and San Mateo County through education, advocacy, and most importantly, fun. And so in addition to that, I just want to tell you a little bit about our mission, vision, and goal. Our purpose is to create a healthy community and environment and economy through bicycling for people that work and play, not just Santa Clara County, but also San Mateo County. And we envision a community that values, includes, and encourages bicycling for all purposes and for all people. Our central goal is to see that 10% of trips are taken by bike by 2025. Next, please. With the goal of 10% of trips by bike, SVBC focuses on two avenues, people and places. The term people refers to the cultural and behavioral changes and way of convincing folks to try riding a bike. Safe bike infrastructure and bike lanes is the place that we speak of, and that's the aspect of SVBC's work. That means bike plans, securing funding, working with cities to prioritize bike projects. These are all examples of how we lay the foundation for the construction of high quality, stress-free bike infrastructure. SVBC did a public opinion poll at the beginning of the pandemic, which provided some statistics, one of which was that 70% more men ride than women. And the other that came out is that 20% of people of Latino or Latino origin own a bike. Next slide, please. All right, so you may see that 10% of bikes are here, 10% of trips by bike. And yes, once again, that is our central goal, is to see that 10% of bikes or trips are taken by bike by 2025. And you're probably thinking, that's a lot. Is that obtainable? Yes, it is, but it's definitely going to take a change of behavior and also infrastructure. For those of you taking notes, 10% is 1 out of 10 trips, just 1 out of 10. The bicycling is like a miracle transportation choice. We're talking about unique ways to travel. It's affordable, it's good for the environment, it gets you the opportunity to exercise and explore your community. Our region is perfect for bicycling. It's relatively flat, we have some hills, and we have great weather year round. Outside of a few weird days that we've had just this week, our weather is usually great for bicycling and everything else. Currently, the rate of trips by bike is 1.5% on average across both counties, based on the US Census. Across Santa Clara County and San Mateo County, we are looking at 1.5% of trips only taken. Clearly, we are far off from our goal. The following poll that you'll see was a collaboration with MTI, the Mineta Transportation Institute. Next slide. Thank you. 1.5%, that is a small percent of the residents who bike. So the question is, well, why is that? There are cities like Palo Alto that are at 9% trips by bike. SVBC did a statistically significant poll early last year, pre-pandemic, with the Change Research and Mineta Transportation Institute to find out attitudes about why people chose transportation methods that they do. We found no one really enjoys riding in a bicycle lane next to 45-mile-per-hour traffic. Not a big surprise there. We even found that people don't really like riding next to 25-mile-per-hour traffic. It just doesn't feel comfortable. Where people do feel better is on trails and protected and separated bikeways. For the most part, our streets aren't set up so that people feel safe biking, but we do have the power to change that and implement better bike infrastructure. Next. Thank you. All right. We also found that speed, not the speed of traffic next to you, but how fast that you can get from point A to point B also affects people's interest in bicycling. And that was actually the #1 factor in how people choose to get around, followed by the ease of use and safety from crime and crashes. So in order to make things faster and easier and safer to get more people interested in biking, we need to look at infrastructure. Thank you. All right. So we had the opportunity during the pandemic to experiment and make things the way we wanted them to be in the future. A survey on our website currently shows that the way that people wanted to interact with their surroundings, found that people are driving less and bicycling and walking more. And they actually like those things. Part of the reason for that is that there are fewer cars on the streets and people felt safer. Key component in bicycling is feeling safe when you're out there on the road. Without that, there just isn't an interest, and it's understandable. People also like slowing down a little bit and being able to exercise and get fresh air and, you know, socialize and interact with their environment. We capture that, but we call that, you know, the joy experience, as well as preventing cars from flooding back and making bicycling safer and easier for people when they come back to the office and the schools. We're trying to see how we can implement this information to kind of counter that and be prepared for the post-pandemic, if we are there yet. Next slide, please. All right. So we currently have some initiatives in San Mateo County. We're working strategically in broad advocacy initiatives that we believe will help us achieve our missions to create a healthy community, environment, and economy through bicycling for people who live, work, or play in San Mateo County. SDVC partnered with Peninsula Clean Energy to promote their new e-bike rebate last spring to low-income residents, and had a great community response. When you think about people and places, e-bikes are a great way to get places faster, and B, to get up those hills that are sometimes at a barrier to really exploring your surroundings. They make it easier for people that bike to get around, thus contributing to our goal to get folks to 10% of trips by bike by 2025. Additionally, they help people who need an extra boost on a bike, whether it's helping them go farther or carry a heavy load or tackling steep hills, biking with kids, are making it possible to use a bike with a disability. E-bikes help to fill in that gap. Awesome. So this is like the highlight here for me. We're growing. We're trying to make a shift from our bottoms-up approach that we used to have with our local teams, and we've empowered them to take the reins and make some of the decision-making processes, letting us know what's important to them. So the teams are made up of concerned and engaged residents that want to see change to make bicycling safer, and we meet during our monthly bikeactivist forums to discuss bicycling that affect them where they live. A recent win was with the city of San Mateo. The city of San Mateo voted to approve the North Central Bike Lane project. And this was a big win for the San Mateo local teams, which has been working hard to mobilize, support, and meeting with council members regularly to present their concerns. Thank you. Oh. One moment. There you go. Thank you. In addition to that, we've been diversifying part of our mission is diversity, equity, inclusion, and we've been making sure that we reflect our various communities. And to do that, we are engaging and collaborating with the youth and communities of color, as these are two groups that are profoundly impacted by policies in their community. And so we're giving them opportunity to make sure that their voices are heard and that they are at the table when these policies and decisions are being made. Those two groups are Youth Leadership Institute and Living in Peace. Thank you, Michelle. All right, so what can you do? This is the part you're waiting for. With the goal of 10% of trips by bike in mind, infrastructure rides are a great starting point. In order for cities to prioritize safe and stress-free bike infrastructure, there are 3 impediments. First being getting everyone on board, and that includes stakeholders like council members, city staff, and community members. Second is changing the mindset of those who come from institutions or schooling backgrounds that prioritize cars. Lastly, promoting bicycling as a safe and viable transportation option. What else can you do? You can become an SVC member. And you can join us for some of our really fun activities that we do. We do the work that needs to be done to make bicycling safer, and we have fun doing it. We have a monthly Bikeactivist forum. Our upcoming topic is parking minimums. It's more exciting than it sounds. In addition to that, we have our monthly workshops with biking champions training that teaches members of the community on how to plan a route within their community and have other members participate in that and to do it safely and navigate a route and plan it all out. It's something that we do as an organization. We do fun rides and we're trying to pass that on to the community. And we also have our e-bike basics and our upcoming events, which is Bike to Wherever Day, May 21st. Please go to our website if you need more information.
Thank you, Diana. I love that it's now Bike to Wherever Day. And I also like the emphasis on, that biking can be fun, like reminding people that this is getting out and not just being stuck in our individual cars.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Petra.
Social thing. So thank you for that. Now we're going to move to Phillip Kobernick from Peninsula Clean Energy.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Let me get this up. All right, can you give me a thumbs up? I assume everything is coming through. Great. All right, awesome. Thanks for having me. My name is Phillip Kobernick. I head up our transportation portfolio at Peninsula Clean Energy, and I'll be chatting about what we're doing to drive towards a zero emissions future and some of the ways that you can get involved as well. So a quick about us. If you're unfamiliar with Peninsula Clean Energy, we are San Mateo County and very shortly a small town in Merced counties, official electricity provider. We generate clean and affordable power and make reinvestments into the community. So we're a public agency and we're governed by a board of directors. So we work for you in providing clean and affordable power to the community. And the way it works is we secure contracts and make new resources for like solar and wind. That gets delivered on PG&E's transmission lines. So you still pay PG&E for that part of your bill. And then those clean electrons from renewable energy come to you at your home and business. And our mission is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through a bunch of different sustainable and affordable energy solutions. So I work on our programs team. So in addition to all the work we're doing to make your electricity greener, we are also working to get more things on electricity to reduce harmful emissions from methane in buildings, and of course, gasoline and diesel in our transport environment, and then also on resiliency to make sure that all those resources can help in the event of grid shutoffs and optimization for the grid. So one thing I wanted to talk about that's kind of driving our efforts in addition to our decarbonization goal overall is that a few months ago, our board of directors adopted a goal that instead of trying to help the community achieve carbon neutrality by 2045, that we should be striving for 2035. So moving up our goal and directing our staff directing me and some other folks to work on a plan for achieving that goal. So that is where we're at right now. And I think what this really does is address the need to be moving more quickly and try to be more aggressive on what we're targeting. So one of the best things that we can do is make sure that everything that we build new is a all electric, zero emissions building. And so one of the ways that we do that is we've adopted model reach codes for all electric buildings. That means that if you're one of the cities here in this pie chart that has adopted one of these reach codes, they all have different flavors, they're a little different, but for the most part, what it means is when you build things like new multifamily housing, no methane to that building. It's going to be a fossil fuel free building. And it also includes EV charging requirements. So if you do provide parking, that parking has to have access to EV charging. And that's certainly a major equity issue, and that the adoption of EVs is disproportionately going towards homeowners and folks that are wealthier for sure. Even though it could have a real benefit for folks who, if they drive a lot and gasoline is a big part of their transportation budget, they stand the most to benefit from something like vehicle electrification. Now we are doing another round. So this year we're doing another round of the codes for all those cities who adopted. They have to adopt again. And part of that is increasing the EV component of it. And so for folks wanting to get involved in building electrification and then transportation electrification, all these cities, and then we're going to be targeting new cities too, we'll have to vote on this. So you will have a chance to have your voice heard with your local city as they consider and adopt these codes this year. And then I have a link to bayareareachcodes.org. This is a Bay Area initiative with our friends in Santa Clara County and Alameda County as well. So another thing that we are doing is that we've made a really big investment. Us and the state, we're partnering with the California Energy Commission with a local effort to install 3,500 charging ports by 2024. And that's going to have a huge impact for folks. A major focus of our effort is on multifamily housing. So these are retrofits. So these are putting in charging to multifamily housing that already exists. The codes are focusing mostly on new construction, although we have some spicy components there on existing construction or existing building retrofits. This program is to provide funding and technical assistance for folks. So if you live in a multifamily housing, this would be a great opportunity. We're working really with the owners of this, certainly, but talk to your landlord, talk to the owner. We provide a really great service to help people design these projects and then fund them. And again, a big focus on multifamily housing because folks who live in multifamily have historically really been shut out of access to the benefits that come with EVs. And the link to that is pencleanenergy.com/EV ready. All right, a couple of more things. We have a rebate now for used electric vehicles, trying to make those more affordable for folks. Anybody can apply to this right now. This program is wide open, so please apply, tell people about it, help us promote it. That'd be fantastic. Everybody has access up to $1,000 for a rebate for a full electric car, $700 for a plug-in hybrid. And for folks that are income qualifying, we have increased amounts up to $4,000 for that. And the link is below there for that program. Another thing we're doing is we're trying to get people to try out EVs, get people to kind of experience them and then start their customer journey towards switching over from their car to an EV. This kind of took the place of ride and drives in the pandemic, which were pretty popular. And so what we're doing now is we're giving folks up to $200 to go rent an EV for the weekend. So Turo is a very popular app that folks use to share cars and rent cars, and they have EVs. A lot of them are actually on that app. So go try one out. If you're going on a road trip around the Bay Area, go rent an EV and we'll give you up to $200 off. And that's open to everybody for folks to try out electric cars. They're normal cars. They're just normal. They just run on electricity. But it's important for folks to try them out. So that link to that is also on the slide. And the last thing I'll talk about is our e-bike rebate program that Diana mentioned. So we launched this last year and provided nearly 300 e-bike rebates very quickly. There's tremendous community demand for e-bikes, which is amazing. And so we provided an $800 rebate. And this program was exclusively for residents with low to moderate incomes to help kind of bridge the gap on access to e-bikes. And we did some interesting follow-up surveys with folks and found that we're estimating that people in our program are reducing their overall car trips by about 38% in this group of about 300 people, which was fantastic. And out of this group, 1 in 6 folks now use their e-bike as their primary mode of transportation, using it every day. Really great. We have funding to do this again, and so we're in the planning process of how this program will be relaunched. And then in addition to us, there's a state rebate coming in 2022. So the California Air Resources Board at some point this year will finalize how that will work. We don't have a lot of details on that yet, but there is 10 million coming from the state to incentivize e-bike ownership, which I'm also very excited about. All right, and thank you very much. Happy to chat more.
Thanks, Philip. I remember when you rolled out the e-bike rebate and we started to advertise it and you're like, no, wait, stop, we already are out. So yeah. Definitely a lot of pent-up demand. So glad you're doing that again. We're going to take a second to show you the results from the last poll. And it seems like a lot of you would really like it if we could, I don't know, buy you an electric car. I don't know if it's the time or money one on that one. But there seems to be a decent amount of pent-up desire for electric cars, for riding the train and the bus and biking more. So that's really interesting. We have one last poll question, which is around what is stopping you from doing what you would like to do. And the last one is actually supposed to say safety. So money, time, no other forms of transportation available, distance, or the last one, safety. So let us know what's holding you back from the most climate-friendly transportation. While that's going, I'll introduce the next speaker, which is Amy Linehan, who's here from SamTrans. She's the programs manager, the public affairs specialist, to talk about all things SamTrans. So before she starts, we'll just look quickly at the transportation poll, and it seems like the biggest barriers are money and distance. And then after that, time and safety. Okay. Well, thank you guys for sharing that.
Start?
Yep.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amy Linehan. I am a public affairs specialist with the San Mateo County Transit District. Before I dive into my presentation, I just wanted to give a little bit of information about what the district is. We are the managing agency for 4 different agencies. SamTrans, which is the bus, Caltrain, which is the train, the San Mateo County Transportation Authority, which is a funder of a variety of different programs throughout the county. And then we recently added a new agency, the San Mateo County Express Lanes Joint Powers Authority. That is the owner and operator of a network of express lanes that we are building on US 101 in San Mateo County. So those are the 4 agencies that we manage right now. And the reason I talk about that is because I'm going to bounce between a couple of different programs, and I'm going to take off my SamTrans hat and put on a different hat. So that's how you'll know where I'm going with this. So I spent nearly most of my 5 minutes talking about who we are. So I'm going to talk about 3 things this afternoon: Reimagine SamTrans, our zero-emission fleet conversion plan, and then our Express Lanes Community Transportation Benefits Program. And starting with Reimagine SamTrans, this is a program that a lot of you are probably familiar with. We started this back in, when I first started at the district, so it was about August of 2019. We're taking a holistic look at our bus system and trying to make it work better for people who ride the bus, and try to attract some new ridership. And a little bit about our ridership, we generally average about 36,000 weekday riders per week. We operate 71 fixed routes throughout the county. Nearly 80% of our riders during a recent survey said that they do not have another method of transportation. So we do have a very transit dependent customer base. We also have pre-pandemic, approximately 85% of our riders were low income, with about 40% of that being extremely low income. So we're dealing with a customer base that is low income and transit dependent, which is something that we always have to keep in mind as we think about redoing our bus service. So to guide Reimagine SamTrans, we developed 4 guiding principles. And these were based on board input, public input, and input from our workforce. We did a lot of outreach to our operators to make sure that we were putting together a network that they could actually drive. There's no point in putting together a network that doesn't work for the operators. So these 4 guiding principles that you see up on the screen here have really informed all the decisions that we've made throughout the Reimagine process. We're trying to deploy a service that is customer focused, deploy a service that our workforce can actually deliver. Similar to a lot of transit districts across the country, SamTrans is facing an operator shortage. And we want to put out a network that we can actually staff. So our workforce delivery factors into a lot of decisions that we've made with regard to the new bus network. We want to be an effective and efficient mobility provider. And we also really, really want to be supporting the principles of social equity, which means we need to direct our resources into equity priority areas. We need to send a bus to where people need the bus and where they're actually going to ride the bus. And that has been a tricky tightrope that we've had to walk throughout this entire service, this network redesign plan, because you want to make sure that you're providing service to the people who need it. And then there's some trade-offs that you have to make throughout the process to make sure that that is happening. We did a lot of public outreach. There were 3 phases of public outreach for Reimagine SamTrans. We just ended our 3rd and final phase last fall. Up on the screen, you'll see a number of different metrics that we got to in our public outreach. But I really wanted to pause on our CBO partnerships today, because the CBOs were really instrumental in making sure that we did multilingual outreach in historically underserved communities in San Mateo County. And we utilized this approach for phase 2 and phase 3 for Reimagine SamTrans. And in phase 3, we partnered with 3 different community-based organizations: the Fair Oaks Community Center, Friends of Old Town, and Nuestra Casa. And these CBOs supported our outreach by organizing and staffing different pop-up events, helping to collect responses to the survey that we did. We got about 2,000 responses to our last survey. And I can say with confidence that a good proportion of those survey responses we wouldn't have gotten if we didn't have those CBO partnerships. It really helped us get out into the community and talk to the people who actually use the bus. It's something that I plan to use going forward. It's something that a lot of our staff plans to use going forward in any sort of public outreach endeavor that we have. It's really helpful to make sure that we're in the community in a multilingual way, not just talking to the same people all the time. We are bringing a new network to our board next week. I think our board meeting is next week. The days are starting to run together. But the new network does prioritize quality, frequent 7-day service to our equity priority areas. Those are low income, communities of color, and transit dependent household. We're focusing on rider preferences and ways to build more frequent ridership in the county. There's 2 phases of implementation. First phase will be somewhere between August and November of 2022, and then we'll take on a second phase depending on our workforce ability later toward 2023. So I just wanted to highlight that there are 2 phases of the network implementation for that once it's approved by the board. Moving quickly to our zero emission bus fleet. Our board has adopted a goal to transfer our full fleet to zero emission by 2038. This is ahead of the CARB statewide goal of transforming all transit fleets to zero emission by 2040. And our first zero emission bus route is going to be a limited stop express bus route that connects East Palo Alto, a number of major employers along US 101, and the BART system at San Bruno Station. It is designed with the principles of social equity in mind. It's designed to improve service and advance clean technology in one of our county's most impact and historically disadvantaged communities. So this is another one of those examples where we're moving our technology forward, but we continue to keep an eye on equitable service and providing service to the communities that really need the bus. I'm going to take off my SamTrans hat and put on my TA JPA hat for this next slide. There is a lot of conversations being had, and I think they're valuable conversations being had about the benefits of express lanes and who actually benefits from an express lane and who actually uses the lanes. The TA, in partnership with CCAG and Caltrain, has been building express lanes on US 101 in San Mateo County. We actually just finished a portion of the project and they are operational right now. There's another portion of the project that will open toward the end of this year. The owner and operator of those lanes, the Joint Powers Authority, really wanted to make sure that our express lanes in San Mateo County were operating with an eye on equity. So next month, we will be launching a community transportation benefits program. It's an equity program. It's sponsored and funded by the JPA. And this is unique to San Mateo County. You won't find a similar equity program associated with an express lane operating in any other part of the Bay Area. It does help qualified San Mateo County residents cover some of their transportation costs. And there are 2 options to pick from. You do have to be a San Mateo County resident, and there are some income requirements that has to be made. It's designed toward low income residents of San Mateo County. It's being implemented by Samaritan House in San Mateo. So this is just another example of how we're trying to keep an eye on equity while also advancing our system and using modern technology to move traffic through the corridor and reduce congestion in the area. And that is my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions you might have. And I will stop sharing so I'm not taking up the whole screen here.
Thank you, Amy.
Welcome.
I just want to reemphasize that the benefits program that you just talked about really is unique to San Mateo County. Other places have done express lanes and they have all kinds of, I forgot some of the nicknames for them, but basically, thinking of them really as for rich people. So this was one of the ways that San Mateo County decided to make sure that equity is part of the express lane process. And I think one of the reasons why that happened was because of the advocacy of groups like the ones in the room. So it's great to have your voice heard. And to know that SamTrans then took that and came up with an innovative solution. So, and our last speaker is really going to focus very much on the equity issues. Julio Garcia is a longtime environmental justice advocate and is now the director of a new organization called Rise South San Francisco. So thank you, Julio.
Thank you very much, Petra, and good afternoon, everyone. Like Petra said, my name is Julio Garcia. I am the director of Rhizome City, we are located in South San Francisco, and our vision is about local transformation, working with the most vulnerable populations and communities that that we see the suffering from environmental degradation and social segregation. We are committed to create dialogues between frontline communities and about climate change and social equity issues. And I think one of the things that we are working right now is the expansion of 101. So as I want to tell you, South San Francisco, the Bayview, Visitation Valley, and other communities, we are in the 96% percentile of most polluted census tracts in California. That is an estimate of concentrations of different pollutants in the air, and we're planning in expanding the 101 lanes. So managed lanes are going to be an expansion there, and being in the 96%, just think about it, expanding the freeway and cars idling and trucks idling out there will damage the community a lot more. And this brings like social equity again. This is equity or equality? Equity for the riders, equality for the people who live there, and not, I don't think so. So our purpose with this is to inform the community about the harms and the consequences of being in around the 101 and the proximity to that. I think, the community is not aware of this because the materials that are produced are not being translated, or the translation is so bad that we don't understand what is being translated. And this happens all over San Mateo County. We see flyers, brochures, and everything that it doesn't make sense in Spanish at all. So, we're trying to work with the authorities that are planning this 101 expansion to have a conversation, a dialogue with community members about the long-term harms. Health harms are going to happen because the freeway, the microplastics, the pollution, and everything is going to be affected. And it's going to be again the frontline communities who live around that corridor. So there's people who are below the poverty line. We cannot move anywhere because when apartments are cheap, the more polluted that we are, is the more polluted that, people of color live. And that's something that is being happening. So that's what I say, we're talking about equity or equality. So that's part of the work that we're doing in South San Francisco. I want to talk to also about some exciting stuff that we're doing there. We're currently in the middle of a study of the bicycle lanes in South San Francisco. Thank you, Diana. And we are working with a couple of coalitions there. The bicycle paths that we have there, I mean, what can I say? These are for recreation only. They don't take us anywhere. They just, say, just a ride on Sunday, or a ride when you want to exercise, or just taking a break with your bike. And off are, again, they're not, we are not thinking about low-income communities or hard-to-reach communities that we can say, okay, we can use the bike for purposes of going to the store, but doing that, we need to create safer streets. And what we're doing is looking at the bicycle paths that we have right now and trying to just connect it to streets that people are going to be like supermarkets, stores, and all of that. So we can use more the bicycle paths, providing more bicycles for low-income communities. So we are not going to be using for recreational purpose only, but for practical use, like going to the store instead of walking, or back to schools that our kids can take and all that. So we're in the middle of that. And I think, we have a lot of partners that are interested in working with that in South San Francisco, and that's the other cities that we want to, other city entities that we want to include in this study. But again, we need to talk to frontline communities. We need to talk to people of color, do surveys, talk to the community, go around and asking, are you using these bicycle paths? And if you're not using them, why not? It's the same for everything that we do. We need to create relationships with community members. That takes me that, you know, the relationship that we have, when we're managing SamTrans. So when I was working in East Palo Alto with my previous organization, SamTrans approaches and saying, okay, we need some community surveys. We need to do this work right here. We need to find out where people take the buses and where they're going. So and this is something that I say to all the organizations who approach me. I say, well, you know, we don't do surveys. We have conversations with the community. We want to establish a long-term relationship with SamTrans. If SamTrans is willing to do that with East Palo Alto, we'll be happy to do the survey. We'll be happy to talk to the community. Often enough, you know, we have government organization partners or that they just go to our communities, do the quick survey, do the quick, you know, whatever mark check. And that's what something that I call you, check your mark right there. That I don't call this equity, you know, equality, but and they disappear from the community. We need to start getting used to be in the community and be accountable to the community. And that's the conversation when we have with SamTrans. It was some back and forth, a few meetings that, you know, we were pushing, but we push. And you see the unique program that SamTrans have in East Palo Alto right now. We have buses from East Palo Alto to Stanford University that a lot of our work, or the people who live in East Palo Alto work. We will have buses that people are not going to be walking at night because we will have transportation there. Then that's being, for me, that's equality, listening to the community, listening to the needs of the community. So, I mean, I'm so glad that SamTrans decided to move forward with this partnership, but I wish that, you know, the next round we can extend it from 3 organizations to more organizations in the Bay Area, because we need this kind of partnerships with the nonprofits and government organizations. The last thing I want to mention is that you know, we need to keep collaboration with different sectors, have conversations about this, conversation about where are we going in the future and how can this going to be affecting our low-income communities, be more inclusive with low-income populations. I know that, you know, sometimes it's really hard to translate your materials, or you just want to do a quick Google Translate. No, let's translate the materials and let's honor our community by providing some materials that we are going to be able to understand and read and get involved into it. Let's do our meetings, you know, at the time that the community can participate, 5, 6 o'clock, provide community stipends, because something else that I say all the time is that, you know, if I live in Red Bull City or if I live in South San Francisco, I'm an expert on my community. I know what is going on day to day there because I live, sometimes I work in my community that I do. So we're working also with Peninsula Clean Energy, and, you know, they're amazing with the work that we do with equality and equity, but we need to keep pushing forward. I mean, electric cars are really great, but how can I park an electric car on my backyard? So all those conversations, we need to be having it with the community, and reach out, please, to community agencies like Nuestra Casa, like Right South San Francisco, and other organizations that are here that can partner with you. But don't forget that, you know, time is money also. So we can partner and do a couple of things, but we need to get paid too. Fortunately, unfortunately, that has to happen. With that, I mean, I appreciate, you know, people being here, and if you have any questions, I'll be around. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. A couple of things I just want to emphasize. The Cal Environ screen that Julio was talking about is something that's fascinating to look up. And the fact that, you know, South San Francisco is in the 95th percentile for air pollution. We kind of think the Bay Area is a lovely island of sanity, and then you find out a statistic like that, and you're like, oh, we still have a lot of work to do. But I do appreciate the success story that Julio highlighted of working with SamTrans. And that's a lot of reasons why we have conversations like this, to make sure that we're continuing to build those relationships between the community organizations, government, the transit organizations, and all of you. One of the things that's come up in the chat, but I think probably requires a little bit of explanation, is why you can't just take a lane and make it into a carpool lane. So who wants to, from on 101, why did we have to expand the 101 where we did, and why does South San Francisco not want to expand it? Why can't they just turn it into a carpool lane? Who wants to take that question?
So I think that question is probably for me. So we did so I'm gonna separate 101 into two projects. I'm gonna separate it into south of 380, and I'm gonna separate it into north of 380. North of 380, we are, so I'm putting on my San Mateo County Transportation Authority hat here. We are in an environmental phase. We are studying the impacts of what we can do to ease congestion north of 380. That's something that isn't going to go away. And it's something that the TA has been formed to address. We don't know what that's going to look like. We haven't decided if we're going to expand the freeway. We haven't decided if it's going to be an HOV lane. There's an option to not do anything. And we are in the point of the project where we are letting the science play out and the traffic modeling play out to decide what ultimately, if anything, will be done there. And you know, we have been approached by stakeholders in South San Francisco, and I really do appreciate that feedback, because it has illuminated to us what kind of outreach that we do need to do there. And it's important to continue those conversations. But until the environmental phase is complete, we can't say what that's going to be. South of 380, yes, those are express lanes. And we reconfigured the freeway so that we did ultimately add a lane. And there is legislation, and I've been asked about this before, and I don't know the answer to it, that prevents you from moving just from a regular general purpose lane into an HOV lane. I think that's what it is. And so there's steps that you have to go through in order to do that. And that's why you can't just change the lanes. I hope that answers the question. I may have diverged off here, but I do like to think about these projects. There's a lot of conversations about north of 380, and I really do appreciate that, and getting feedback on that is really, really important. But those aren't express lanes yet. It's not a widening project yet. And it's not an expansion project yet. And we need to just sort of let the science play out a little bit to determine what we're going to do there.
And when you get to science, what does the possibility for community input, how does that work?
So there is a draft EIR that will come out, and at that point in time, environmental impact report, sorry, that will come out, and that's when we will have an official public comment process that will be led by Caltrain. I think the timeline for that is early 2023, but that hasn't been finalized yet. We're in the very beginning of this environmental phase. We're, you know, like a year out from being done. So,
thank you. Do any of the panelists have questions for each other, since we're all in the same room? If not, I'll go back to the chat questions. There was a question from Mike earlier about not getting response when he tried to work with his landlord to try to get or try to work with someone in a multi-home building.
Yes.
Okay, Philip, do you want to take that one?
It's super complicated. We've designed our strategy with that in mind. Like the typical way EV charging happens at a multifamily apartment is kind of how you're describing. Let's say it's a 20-unit building. You've got maybe a dozen or so parking spots. One resident says, I want to switch my 30-year-old car to an EV. Great. Can I please have a charger? The landlord says, I have no idea what that is or how to do it, and looks it up for a second, sees a price tag that scares them off. So our strategy that we've designed provides free design assistance. So if they were to apply, we will do the complete design for them. And the way that we've done this is that we've really focused on low cost and scalable solutions so that we don't just go in and put in one charger for the first person with a Tesla that gets it. We're trying to put in charging for everybody, thinking long-term here. So that's more affordable solutions like running outlets out to all spaces and maybe having a couple of them be higher power for folks with higher energy needs. And then we provide rebates, of course, to make that even as affordable as possible. So it's kind of a two-part process there. So it is not a surprise that you've had a bad experience in trying to pursue EV charging. I would encourage you to revisit the topic and then send that landlord or their apartment operator to our site, because we really have done a lot of thinking about how to make it as easy as possible for those folks. And then we've had some success. Like to give an example, we've had one site that had 27 units apply, 17 units. They applied for a program thinking they'd just put in one charger. And then we designed a program for every single tenant to have access to EV charging. And that was the scope that they accepted. So there's some success there.
Thank you, Philip. And I'm sure anybody who's having issues could contact you.
Please.
Excellent. Diana, there's a question in the chat about thefts of e-bikes. Are they being stolen a lot? Is this an issue that you guys are addressing or have tips about?
I was looking into that. For the most part, bikes in general are stolen or parted. Parts are taken off that are desirable. It is encouraged to lock your bike up just as you would any other bike. Secure it. It is definitely a high ticket item because of the price point. Not necessarily finding any data that shows that they're stolen. More so,
Your sound just went out. But I think it might have been your internet that went out.
Yeah, it doesn't show her as muted.
Excuse me?
It does not show her as muted.
I think my
We can hear you now.
All right. I'll just start all over again. In regards to bicycles being sold versus e-bikes, they're both very desirable. The e-bikes have a higher ticket price on them. When bikes are stolen, they're usually stolen in full or parted out, and the same for e-bikes. It's recommended that you do the same thing you do with the bike, lock it up. People are often surprised at how heavy e-bikes are in comparison to the bikes that you think you might want to steal. It's a little heavier of a task than they might set out for. There isn't any specific statistics in regards to the number of e-bikes that are stolen in comparison to regular bikes, but I can look into that. And I believe it was Mike, or who was it? I'll drop my email again. I'll definitely do a dive into that.
Thank you, Diana. Mike, do you have a question? Another question?
Oh, I was just going to add something on that. Caltrain has also been installing a lot more of the electronic bike lockers at Caltrain stations. So if you use your e-bike or your regular bike to Caltrain, that's a good option. They're a little bit more secure than the regular racks.
Thanks. Mike?
Yeah, I'll lower my hand here. Let me see. Yeah, Philip was mentioning some really good information on, I think he said a unit of about 17 units. This is a condo actually, so it should be easier than going through a landlord. Basically, I'm the landlord. So I tried to contact you guys, never heard back. You know, I kind of had this discussion with someone about a year ago or less. And so if you want to shoot me a really good contact, I'll try again. But I tried to explain it as best I could, and it pretty much sounded exactly like what you guys did for the 17-unit building. We wanted essentially remote charges to we have 33 units and deeded spots, so that part of it makes it a little less confusing. But yeah, we don't want like 1 or 2 chargers, and all the space is spoken for. Anyway, so it is needed, and we had it all figured out. There was a guy who lives here as an electrician, and he said there was a nice big wall next to the main disconnect that he could start fresh and not try to go to each meter, which is presently in a different room, and would be a real mess to try to, you'd have spaghetti all over the place as far as pipes go. And I'm wondering, is there a smaller remote, because all of the new meters are smart meters, and do they have something smaller that could go at the end of the pipe run at each unit's spot that would register the electric usage and be billed accordingly? And naturally, folks who are not ready for it or not interested would just not pay for the additional installation of charger and meter at their spot. But they would have.
I'm going to let you take this with Philip offline. Philip's going to put his email in the chat because I totally admire the fact that you're doing it, and I'm sure he'd be happy to help you. But we only have 5 minutes left, actually 2 minutes left. So I want to give, if the panelists have anything additional they would like to impart before we close out. Not, that's okay too.
Thank you for inviting me to speak this afternoon and for having us on your panel. It was a great opportunity. Glad I got to talk.
Excellent. It was terrific having all of you. I think once again, we had too many panelists because we were all excited about all the different ways we could talk about transportation. And, this is one of our key things. But I do want to let you know that our next TAG meeting, we're going to be talking about legislation specifically because it is that time of year. So first of all, everyone is invited. And if there's legislation you want us to feature, to reach out to me and Michelle, and we'll make sure that it's up there. Everyone is welcome to come to that one on March 17th. The one after that is in April, and it's actually on Earth Day. And we're going to do it in person. We're going to find a park, and we're going to be social, and we're going to talk to each other, and we're going to have drinks in our hands, and it's going to be terrific. So we hope that everyone can make it to that. And really appreciate all of the different perspectives you brought. I hope everybody enjoyed this, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.